there's definitely going to be people listening to this that marry the wrong person. When you're dating, the most important time is the first 7 seconds. So you only get to make a first impression once. Often people, when they meet online, they can think they have a huge connection with somebody, but when they meet, within a couple of seconds, they know there's no connection. They're like, how is that? Like, I've seen photographs of them, they look like they're photographed, we have this connection and banter, and what that is pheromones. Up to 30% of men in between 20s and late 40s haven't had sex in the last year. So women are hypergamous and men are hypogamous. So how it works is women date across their social kind of levels, and it can be a number of different factors. The next stage is the power struggle. The average man says, I love you after 88 days.
Feminists are going crazy here now. Any feminists
I know they are.
Mad,
I know they are. Okay, but what I'm saying is,
Mairead Loughman, thank you for joining me.
A real pleasure to meet you, Conor.
Delighted to meet you too. Okay, so where are you from? Where did you grow up?
So I'm from Mullingar. I grew up in Mullingar. Great, kind of centrally located in Ireland, which is always fantastic. But yeah, it's a great spot. If anybody's ever looking for a nice weekend away, come and visit Mullingar.
And is there anything, say, in your formative years or growing up or in your education background that propelled you towards your current profession, matchmaking and dating, can you think?
I don't particularly think so. I suppose when I was growing up, I was the person in the teenage years that we were all the time matchmaking my friends. So I was definitely the one, because I was quite confident. Now, I wasn't very loud or anything like that, but I did get the benefit of maybe romantic partners and, you know, the romance and the dating side of things. I think it was probably romantic movies and actually the person that set up a lot of my friends. And so when a lot of my friends then started getting married on the back of me having match-made them in our late teens and early 20s, I had gone off to work in finance and I was loving that career. It was very male-dominated industry. And I suppose when the recession hit, I worked through that and I realized, like, this is not what I want. I'm way more creative than this. I'm way more feminine than the financial industry would allow you to be. And so I just decided, when, you know, I realized how difficult it was to meet new people. I realized how difficult it was to find love. And so I said, right, let's just do this.
So you set up a company called Find Love, right? What does...
Right, no, Love HQ.
Oh, sorry, Love HQ. What does Love HQ do?
So I'm a professional matchmaker. It's essentially, I meet all of my clients in person. So I have a consultation with the client, as I was saying to you there a few moments ago. I travel all around Ireland meeting clients in person, which is the most important part of, I would say, my service, is that I meet every single person in person, not Zoom calls, not another member of staff. It is me that meets every single person. I meet people in Dublin, Galway, Cork, Limerick, Kilkenny and Mullingar. Sometimes if people are moving home from being abroad, living for years, or are moving to Ireland and really are looking to immerse themselves completely in Ireland and move back home properly, I will have a Zoom consultation with them, but yet they still have to meet me in person before they go on any dates. I then arrange all of their dates and then I follow up with them after each of their dates as well. So that's hugely important. It's a full service, kind of step by step. Some people really need no help. All they really need is the introduction and off they go. And next thing, you know, a couple of months or a year or two later, you get a wedding invitation or photographs of babies some random Tuesday morning, you know. And then others, they need a lot more help. They might be hugely capable people in a lot of instances, hugely successful people. They may have huge success in their career, in their, you know, where they live, all of those sorts of things, but they've no one to share that with. And that would be a huge category of, you know, my clients that I meet, is that they are missing that somebody. They may have focused. A lot of people would say if you are extremely focused on one area of your life, it is actually your downfall. So it's having balance. A lot of people talk about work-life balance. I talk about work-life-love balance. So that's what I wanted to create with matchmaking. I'm the founder as well of A Table for Six, which was, I would say, Ireland's biggest dating event. So I used to send 3 single ladies and 3 single men on group dinner dates all over Ireland. And I launched that one Friday. It when I say exploded, within a week, I'd say I was on every radio show and newspaper in Ireland. And within 3 months, I was on, I had over 8,000 people on the waiting list. So we had to pause that for a couple of years with COVID, but we're hoping to bring that back soon. And that was hugely successful as well for people that maybe weren't ready yet to go straight into the whole matchmaking side of things, but wanted to dip their toe in the water. So both really are kind of what we do here. We will hopefully be setting up a table for six again very soon, but it's the personalized one-to-one matchmaking, which is the main aspect. I also then have 2 podcasts. So my first podcast I set up during COVID, and I realized that so many people were like, what do I do now? Like, is this my life over? Am I never going to meet someone? Am I isolated on my own? What I found with a lot of clients, they live alone. Because they were successful, they lived alone. They owned their own house. They went from having very busy lives. A lot of them were traveling all over the world, might be in, might say to me, I can't meet that person for another 3 weeks because I'm working in America, and then I'm going to Amsterdam, and then I'm going here, there and everywhere. And so, we'll be trying to schedule in their dates in between all of that, to them literally being stuck at home, all of their pastimes gone, all their holidays cancelled, and literally having nobody outside of that. They're just living on their own. So I set up the podcast, Would Like to Meet, and I only had expert guests on it. So I had guests like Jerry Hussey. I had Stephanie Regan, actually, who was on your podcast last week, who's now my co-host for my second podcast. I had Jim Hickey, who's a life coach. I just had so many fertility experts, because obviously at that time women were all going out and getting their eggs frozen with the pandemic. They were all saying stop the time, this biological clock. So yeah, I won podcast award for that last year. And then myself and Stephanie set up Tough Love podcast last year, and we talk about all areas of dating, love, sex, relationships. She's a clinical psychotherapist, as you know, and relationship expert. And so the two of us together, we're bringing kind of a different generational. She's in her 60s, I'm in my 30s. I'm coming from the dating aspect. I'm putting people together. She's in the keeping them together further down the line. And we actually would have a big crossover of clients as well. I would send a lot of clients to her if I felt they needed a little bit of help and coaching in the right direction. And like that as well, sometimes she'd have clients come to her and she'd say, why don't you give Mairead a call? And we get the ball rolling.
And when you meet people face to face, right, and that's a very important part of it, what are you looking for there? What is it an intrinsic sense of who they are? What can you get in that face to face meeting? So
when you're dating, the most important time is the first 7 seconds. So you only get to make a first impression once. And so that's really the main part of it, is that when somebody's walking towards me, I see one, their body stance or how they hold themselves, the pace at which they walk, their facial expressions. Do they greet me with a smile, or, is it a deadpan face? How they sit, if they're going to sit kind of low in themselves, or do they sit confidently? There also as well, things like smell is very important. And then obviously that lovely nugget that we hear on online dating a lot is height. Are they actually as tall as they say they are and everything? So all of those things are hugely important when it comes to meeting them in person. But also as well, there is a vibe you get off someone when you meet them. And there's a huge amount of science involved in dating. There's a lot of people out there doing online dating. Online dating only exists for the last 10 years. Tinder only turned 10 last year. And so if you think of the way people date, it's completely different to previous generations. And so very often people, when they meet online, they can think they have a huge connection with somebody, but when they meet, within a couple of seconds, they know there's no connection. They're like, how is that? Like, I've seen photographs of them, they look like they're photographed. We have this connection and banter, and what that is pheromones. And so to a certain extent, when you meet every single person, your pheromones bounces off them. You're trying to figure out that if you were to have babies, would they have a diverse gene pool? But there obviously is other messages that are brought in to that as well. So my whole business is meeting people, introducing people for romance. So why would I not meet them in person? If, you should not be going to a matchmaker that's not willing to meet you in person. It's the most personal service that you will ever, encounter, really,
And it could be the most life impacting as well. So tell me about the matchmaking process. What criteria do you use to match couples?
There's a number of different factors. Obviously, Location is probably the first because, where they come to meet me in the country, and where they're able to meet. I match people up to an hour and a half maximum, unless somebody's looking for something very specific and we agree it beforehand that they're willing to travel a little bit more or they travel a lot as part of their job. So yeah, location is obviously one. Sex obviously is hugely important, whether they're looking for male, female, so all sexualities. And everybody's welcome at Love HQ. I don't care who they are. There are no borders. There's no, limits on love. Everybody should be able to find love and should be, accessible to dating and love. But main things that I think are really important. And there's some that are really important, but there's also some that is, I call them the superficial nonsense bullshit stuff that people come with. Okay. So I think lifestyle compatibility is hugely important. Whether or not people want to have kids, it's like literally, are you going to go out this door or this door as to the type of people that I can introduce you to? Whether or not they have children themselves. Believe it or not, so most of my clients now say they will not date someone that smokes. That's a huge deal breaker. Now there still are some that are open to it, but that is a huge factor as well. Age is obviously something. I don't think age should be a huge factor myself. Unless you're under a bit of pressure time wise for having children and everything like that. The way I match people as well can be very different as to whether or not they have been married before and already have children versus if they are looking for their second life partner, or third or fourth in some instances, because the criteria they're looking for is very different. So the biggest decision and the most important decision that will have the biggest impact in your life ever is the person that you decide to spend your life with. Yeah, and if we're being really honest, Conor, nobody puts really any effort into it. Like, most people are happy to stick in their comfort zone. They don't give it any really thought. There's definitely going to be people listening to this. Excuse me. There's definitely going to be people listening to this that married the wrong person, that did the right thing by them, by what society would have expected or by what their family expected, or they got pregnant or whatever it is. There is a lot of that. And, or just went on the next step at some stage that was just the right thing to do. So, you have to take all those things into consideration. That sort of person that comes back to me then to meet their next partner, what they're looking for is very different. All of a sudden, so very often when men come to me first, in their 20s and 30s, they might be like, oh, she has to be really attractive. Have you got any Instagram models? That sort of thing. Like looks might be have a higher weighting than other factors for who they're looking for. But when they come back, maybe in their 40s, having been married, maybe have children already, maybe stayed a lot longer than they would have liked to because they had the obligation of children or to get the kids up to at least a teenage years or whatever. When they come back, then very often what they're looking for is in a female would be someone that has a little bit of life experience, that's somewhat independent themselves, somebody that is emotionally aware, no stress, no drama is what I hear an awful lot. And looks are not
from who?
These are from men looking for their second partner, their second, we'll say, life partner. So especially if they've been married for a long time already.
So no stress, no drama would indicate a contentious, probably, dare I say it, slightly traumatic first go around. The plus the men have been through the divorce process. So, and okay, so do you find people have unrealistic expectations at this stage, at the start of the process, and how do you deal with that?
I think age has a big influence as to whether or not people have unrealistic expectations. I think early 20s can be a little bit, they need a little bit more down to earth, realistic. This is who you are. Even starting with, this is our starting point is you, So like we might need to do a little bit of work or coaching on you before we send you out. Or sometimes, sometimes as well, they might say, I want these characteristics. So I want a lady that's like super driven, entrepreneurial, has her shit together, has her own business and is completely independent. But in the same person, I want someone that's a really good mom, maybe stays at home, and a traditional kind of partner, and I'm like, okay, wait a second. This person works 60 hours a week and this person probably only has time to work 10, 15 hours a week if that's what you want her to be. So we have to have a realistic expectation as to what they're looking for. So yeah, there is conversations that have to be had about realistic expectations. I sometimes have to remind people that we live in Ireland, that I don't have 7,000 Brazilian models on my books. But there's other things then as well about what is genuinely important. I do also get a lot of ladies that come with very unrealistic expectations as to who they are, what they're looking for. I had a conversation with the girl yesterday, and during the consultation I learned so much, and that's why I meet them in person, and that's why it is so detailed, because you can see where they're going to fall or where the pitfall they're going to be along the way. So I very much manage people's expectations. So I had a lady yesterday and we talked about what she'd like to meet in a partner. Now has been married before, is mid to late 30s. And so when I asked her what she's looking for in a partner, it was all superficial stuff. Again, still, and I was like tall, dark, handsome, successful, driven, likes a lot of foreign holidays. Now she's very successful herself. She's a very good career, but I had to delve a little bit deeper again. So how do you want to feel in your relationship? And she was like, what's more important, how you feel or what you see or the things you originally said? And she said, well, obviously how I feel. And I said, well, they need to be what the heaviest weighting are, so the expectations, every single person is completely different. I don't tell them they're right or they're wrong, but we may have a conversation of saying that's 3 people in one person, or this is where the starting point is. So that type of person that you're looking for, they're probably looking for this sort of person. So maybe we need to do an adjustment. I get everybody to come dressed as if they were going on a date already. So that's a good starting point. I, as I said, meet every single person. In Ireland, most people are great, the gift of the gab. Every single woman asks me for a guy with a good sense of humor. So if I meet a guy and he's very serious, I'm going to tell him, every girl, lady, whatever the age are, they want to meet a guy with a good sense of humor. And I think really what they're looking for there, it is, yes, a good sense of humor. They don't need bellyfuls of laughter all of the time, but I think it's so they'll feel safe, that they're not going to be with someone that's grumpy or violent. If someone's violent, they don't tend to be great fun. So I think that there's kind of other reasoning behind it when it comes to these sorts of things.
And also it's about the mood then that would be created. So if you have somebody that's affable and light, they're going to create a light mood. So a playful mood, if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, everybody wants somebody that's going to enhance their life. Nobody wants to come home in the evening and as they're walking in the door going, oh my God, what am I going to expect when I open this door? Am I going to be in trouble? Am I late? Did I do something earlier this morning or leave something plugged in or the immersion on or whatever it is? Nobody wants to live like that and be walking on eggshells. So I think that's why a lot of ladies ask for that.
Okay, so in your experience, what is the challenges or the misconceptions people have about dating, right? So we know that a lot of people get quite nervous and anxious before that first date, right? Mm-hmm. What challenges do they have to overcome, especially on the first date?
I think first of all, it's getting into the right vibe. Or actually, if we probably start is getting out of their comfort zone. Are they genuinely looking for love, or are they just looking for something casual? We might touch on very briefly the fact that up to 30% of men in between 20s and late 40s haven't had sex in the last year, which is a huge amount. Now, these are figures coming out of America, but if we actually look at it, there's something happening there. Men are getting their dopamine hit somewhere else. So a lot of them are getting it from porn. A lot of them are getting it from video games. They're getting it maybe as well from Instagram to a certain extent, or the whole retail kind of buying consumerism side of things. So if we look at that, it's like looking at really society and how we're kind of where dating kind of fits in. And I think it's very important that people come back to what is important in life. We've got a little bit lost with the shiny, fast things in life, as opposed to actually having someone to share it with. As I said to you earlier, a lot of my clients that come to me, they are very successful. And I don't mean hugely wealthy. Some of them are, absolutely. But they're more than comfortable within their life for one human being that's single, living in Dublin or wherever they are around the country. So if you actually look at it from that perspective, they only want to meet someone that's going to enhance their life. So it's one deciding that they want to meet someone. Now, for most people, the motivation for them coming to matchmaking, for a lot of men in their 30s, it is that they would actually like to start a family, and 40s. I get a lot of men right up, like I have everybody from ages, we'll say 21 to 83.
83?
83, yeah.
Wow, fantastic.
Crazy, yeah. I met a gentleman yesterday in Galway that's 72, 73, that came to me. And look, we're always looking for matches. So if you have parents in that age group or grandparents in that age group and you're listening to this, send them on to me, because all we want to do is help as many people to find love. But if we look at what people are actually looking for, they've gotten distracted, and their love is not as important to them. And unfortunately, I think the pandemic did help a lot with people realizing, look, I don't have that special person in my life. But I think a lot of men, unfortunately, leave it on the long finger. They think they don't have this biological clock. If you actually look at your fertility, realistically, you should be having children as early as possible as well, because there are a lot of complications within the lady's pregnancy, increase in miscarriage, autism, things like that, the older the man is. So if we look at those sorts of things, it is very important. But the main motivation for most men coming to me in their 30s and 40s is, right, they just bought a house. We call it the taxi light theory. In New York, when the taxi light is on, they're available. But like a lot of men that might have just bought a house, may have just gotten to the level of their career that they're now comfortable and they can kind of plateau a little bit, that they were living in Dublin for years and have just moved back down home because they've built a house down there and now have the option to work from home. So those sorts of things are motivations for a lot of people to come to me. Obviously for ladies as well, it would be to meet someone to start a family with. So that would be our main age group, but I would still have hundreds. Like I've matched over 7,000 people since 2016, all over Ireland, all age groups, all walks of life. I also do a thing called the Farmer Wants a Wife. So I have people from the most westerly part of Cork to the most north of Dublin and the most easterly point of Ireland as well, and everybody in between. But they would be the main reasons why people would come to me, Conor.
And do you think that men and women, when they date differently?
Yeah, I think they date very differently. So women are hypergamous and men are hypogamous. So how it works is women date across their social kind of levels, and it can be a number of different factors. Women date across and up, and men date across and down. Probably not the best thing to discuss maybe if I was on a national radio show, because people do, it's an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people. But essentially there's a lot of research done, but there's 4 main characteristics, and they say that in traditional male and female matches, men need to be higher in 3 out of 4 of the following. So age, height, wealth, and then education slash social status. So men like to be, and in most cases when women come to me, they want a guy that's taller, they want a guy that is slightly older, they want a guy that maybe earns more money than them. And it's not that they're gold digger, and I'll explain that in a minute, or that they have a bigger personality or persona than they have, or, more Instagram followers, if that's the sort of area of life they're in, Then men, the opposite. They tend to want a lady that's slightly younger, slightly smaller, has a smaller job, we'll say, or I don't mean it by smaller job, but like maybe less affluent type of job. And then obviously social status as well. So, and the reasoning for that is, as I was saying, women are hypergamous and men are hypogamous. Women, if they have a baby, they automatically drop a number of points when it comes to their social status. And look, I try and keep this out of matchmaking as much as possible, but there is a certain level to it. Like women have obviously come a huge way within careers and life and independence levels. I had a lady the other day, she, owns her own house, is director in one of the big international companies, and had just had a baby a few years ago by, sperm donation. So essentially she's completely self-sufficient herself by being able to outsource everything within her life. But realistically, in the most case, what we have is people that they're first generation of maybe a woman being in the management position or in a high career position. And therefore what happens is they still have to stop their job. They still have to keep a little human alive if they have children. And therefore they need someone to, in most cases, to keep a roof over their head, or what their natural instinct is to have someone that can keep the roof over their head or to look after the house while they keep this little human alive. Very often the female, regardless of their job or the male's job, very often in a lot of relationships still, the woman is still the default parent. They are the kind of leader on the parenting side of things for the first few years at least, until things settle down. Now, there are, I'm not going to say exceptional men out there. It isn't. It's a two-way thing. And obviously there's men that are 50-50. So there is no right and wrong in this. And that's one thing when people come to me, and if you listen to my podcast with Stephanie, we are very balanced. We are very realistic. We understand that people are coming from all different directions. We understand that there is the most part, what we often talk about, it's the probability of our clients or where the kind of average sits. But obviously we get both sides of it. But yes, the way men and women date are completely different. And so women obviously want to meet somebody that is at least their equal or slightly bigger with those characteristics that I described, and men the opposite. And it's not just, in some cases, it is absolutely in the most case. Now, I do see exceptions to that. I see exceptions to that where people have achieved something on their own merit within their life, or have done a lot of personal development, self-development, self-exploration, are very emotionally aware, things like that. And so I did mention a few months ago is the superficial nonsense bullshit stuff. Like, why does it matter if a man is younger or older than you? Is it really that important in 2023? Why does it matter if a guy is taller or smaller than you as a woman in 2023? If it doesn't matter to him, it shouldn't matter to you. And so there's a number of different things. Who cares, or who made the rule that men should earn more or women should earn less? It's kind of like, the doctor, nurse, which one is the male and which male is the female sort of thing. So how we're even teaching kids is important, I think, for future dating, because also figures coming out of America is that twice as many women are graduating with degrees in universities in the US as males. Now, if we're just measuring degrees, all of a sudden it's like, oh, women are way more educated. But actually, if we look at maybe apprentices and we look at trades and things like that, which, let's face it, we need all of those things to have a house and a roof over our head. So, when you only start measuring in one direction, and that's the great thing about people, is everybody's different. For every, as my granny says, for every sock, there's a shoe. So if you're not finding your person in the way that you're dating, come to someone like myself, because guess what? I have all sorts of everybody here. I just recently had a guy, he's looking for a female-led relationship. He's extremely successful in his career, very independent, has his own house in a very nice place, a part of Ireland. He's tall, he's handsome, all of those things. And I, said to him, what does the female-led relationship mean to you? And he's like, well, I just make so many decisions in work all day that I don't want to come home and have to be the man of the house, when, I would like a lady that's nearly like my equal, or can like push forward in other areas. I like a lady to be more dominant because I have to be the dominant energy in work. So there's lots of different types of people out there, and you wouldn't know that that's the type of relationship he's looking for if you meet him online. And not things like that are not always received well if you meet someone online or out and about.
Yeah, plus we know that what we hear is that females do like men to lead. So that could present him with a slight problem.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned...
Or the perception can be that he might be lazy. One lady, when I suggested him, she was like, is he just really lazy? And I'm like, no, it's a completely different vibe than that. So we should continue speaking, yes.
So you mentioned 3 out of 4 things that men need to be higher in terms of the hypergamous relationships. What I'm hearing there as a man is, okay, it's going to take some time, right? Hence the reason why men will probably delay. So status, power, influence, wealth, money, those things don't drop into your hand when you're 20 years of age and you're a man, unless you inherit them, which is unlikely. So it takes you time to build up to that level of influence. So I can understand why men would delay and delay and delay, and then boom. Okay, so that's very, very interesting. Okay, so moving from the dating phase to the relationship phase, right? So I've watched a lot of people online that they suggest in preparation for this conversation, and people like David Buss, 3, 4, 5. How long should people be dating, in your view, before we start to move into the relationship phase? Are we talking 3 months, 6 months, 3 weeks, 3 dates? What do you think works?
I'm going to say that every body is different. Okay, so the reason I'm going to say everybody is different is because they are. It depends on how emotionally aware they are. It depends on how ready they are for a relationship. But most of all, and the most important thing in any relationship, is communication. How good you communicate. If you are in a relationship with someone that's poor communicating, has bad flirting skills, has bad honesty skills, is coming from a place that they probably should have went to therapy for a few weeks before they started their next relationship, long distance relationships, all of those sorts of things. There's so many variables. Okay. Now, in theory, I would say if it's your first big relationship, I think you should be at least a year dating before any huge decisions. I definitely think you should definitely wait a year before having kids or getting married. 100%, I think you should wait a year. Other than that, it's up to yourself. I would say to a certain extent, you need to be aware if it's too good to be true at the beginning. I would just be slightly aware of love bombing, which is kind of narcissistic characteristics that they love bomb you with everything you want to hear and everything, and then they retract it, and it can be quite difficult to get out of that relationship. So be very careful. If it's too good to be true straight on, just question and slow down. Is this love bombing? Do I still have my rose tinted glasses on? There's 3 stages of love. One is the romantic stage. So that's where the rose tinted glasses are still on. Your hormones are through the roof. The sexual energy is through the roof. The big build-ups, they even have to look at you and you're just like tingling all over sort of phase. Okay, so that's the romantic stage. You do not, if you can hold off falling in love in that stage, that's a very good bit of advice. The next stage is the power struggle. I would say this normally kicks in about 5 to 6 weeks in. The rose tinted glasses start falling off a little bit, or kind of starts falling down the face a little bit. And I think this is no harm. Also, you're probably meeting each other a lot more. You're probably spending time with each other a lot more as well. The power struggle, there's 2 things that can happen at this stage. One, you can keep on going, okay, and communicate very well. And the chances are you'll get to the 3rd stage, which is your happy ever after. Or at this stage, I think what happens to a lot of people at this stage, and I actually kind of, I nearly set a timer for about 4 or 5 weeks in for my clients that I've matched up, and I'm like, oh, they're very happy over there, but I'm just going to give both of them a phone call just to let them know. What happens at this stage is the power struggle. So maybe he has been late the last 3 times, or has had to reschedule the date the last 3 times, or maybe she, I don't know, didn't turn up, or whatever it is. There's can be something, or they put maybe football training in front of, as a priority instead of your date, or something like that. And at that stage, you are starting to fall in love. So the average man says, I love you after 88 days. The average woman after 124 days. Now, I don't know where they came up with both those figures, because somebody must be saying, I love you back, and they're going to wait 40 extra days without saying, I love you. But that's the average statistics on it. So somewhere about 5-6 weeks from there to about 88 days into the relationship, you really just need to be very careful that you are in enough that you're in a vulnerable position now. But you may not have had the conversations of, what is this? Are we in a proper relationship? Are we exclusive? Are you seeing other people? You haven't texted back for 2 days. They're still inconsistent in, how many dates we're going on per week. I don't know if we're actually dating, or is this a situationship? We've had sex, all of those things. And at that stage, for a lot of people, it's easier to self-sabotage than to continue with that relationship. And the reason people self-sabotage is because, at least in that way, if they end the relationship, or they do something that the other person ends the relationship, at least they can predict the outcome. It's a familiar feeling to them. So they're less vulnerable. They are less kind of left out to chance or what could happen. And for a lot of people, they're not
control.
good at
Control as
Yes,
well.
control as well. For a lot of people, they're not good at being outside their comfort zone, so they're certainly not okay with their heart being left outside their comfort zone. And you see this a lot with very successful people. And this is why a lot of very successful men and women are single, because they are so good at business, and they are at the stage now, especially in their 30s and 40s, they are at the stage that they're in a management position. They know where everything is. They know how much money is nearly predicted to come in for the next 2 years. They know how much stock is coming, what day it comes on, everything like that. That's fair enough. That's their business. And so they're financially, everything is fine. But your heart is your most vulnerable part of you. And it is a reflection of you. Because so if your business fails, you can set up another business. But your heart is so exposed and so vulnerable. And that's a scary place to be in 5-6 weeks in. Also, as well, what you have to remember is when you have sex with someone, especially women, their bodies are absolutely flooded. And that's why we say try and hold off as much as possible. Now, I'm not a big believer in like wait till day 3, day 4, day 5. I'm just kind of like, here's the information. Just realize this is what's happening, when you have had sex with them.
The
and
oxytocin effect.
The oxytocin, the noradrenaline, the dopamine, all the rushes that come with this. Women now think they're in love. So this guy can now come to you and say to you, you know what, I'm not really looking for a long-term relationship. You never had the conversation maybe before you had sex. I'm not looking for a long-term relationship. And, but like, do you want to go out for a pizza on Friday night and why don't you stay in my house? Chances are she's kind of like, maybe I can convince him a little bit because my body now thinks that I'm in love with you. So it's all of that stuff is going on. So there is no right and wrong answer. It's kind of how much do you know about what's going on in your own body? How much are you aware? Do you know what you're looking for? Do you know the type of partner that you're looking for? Is this person the type of partner you're looking for? What type of life do you want? How do you want to feel in your relationship? All of those things are really important. So what type of conversations are you having with the person? So that's what I would say. There are certainly conversations that need to be had. Myself and Stephanie have that on our Tough Love podcast. What conversations do you need to have with someone before big life choices, like moving in together, like maybe giving up your job to move down the country to live with somebody, like getting engaged, like having a family, like getting married, all of those things. There are so many conversations that need to be had. And what I would say to anybody that's trying to improve any area of their life, get good at having uncomfortable conversations, but especially get good at having uncomfortable conversations with potential partners, with your other half. Because guess what? By having uncomfortable conversations with them, they become less uncomfortable. Like, I'm very fortunate in my relationship and that's partly why I do what I do, as I was in love and I realized, is this it? I am in love. You can be in love and it be the wrong person. And I realized I'm not really comfortable in this. He does drink too much. He's not, I remember standing in my bedroom, like absolutely bawling, crying. And I'm not a crier, but I was like bawling, crying, going, is this my life? Is this actually it? Is this what's supposed to be here? And I remember thinking to myself, this is like, I just want to be on my own if this is the shit that I have to be putting up with. And so luckily I moved away from that. But I did a huge amount of work on myself. And also from being a matchmaker, I was like, how do you get this 10 out of 10 relationship? And it's not that I was looking for perfection. It was just like, what are the elements that create it? And definitely communication is one of them. Next of all, if you're with the wrong person, your gut is telling you, like, if you don't want to be with this person anymore, there's no reason you need to give for breaking up with them. The actual words of, I just don't want to do this anymore, should be enough. Now, I know they're going to ask you 100 things. If you give them 100 reasons, they're going to come back with 100 alternatives to fix it. If you know in your gut, I just don't want to do this anymore, stop wasting time in the wrong relationships. The right people are out there. Do some work on yourself, get comfortable with yourself, what you're truly looking for in a partner, what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy. And so I'm very fortunate when, with my partner, like straight away, our conversations have been 100% honest. And sometimes I'll say to him, I just need to have a conversation with you about something. And I just put it out there. And then I'm like, sorry to be annoying, but I just need to have that conversation. He's like, I actually really like the way your mind worked on that. Okay, let's figure it out. And so it's figured out. And then he actively tries to fix it, or I actively try and fix it. And if we can't fix it, we come up with a reason as to why we can't. I was watching something recently with Brené Brown, And she says when she comes home from work in the evening, herself and her husband are like, hey, how was your day? And how was, vice versa, how was your day? She might say, so they're saying that a real relationship isn't 50-50. Sometimes it's 20-80. Sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes it's 20 and 20, and they only have 40%. They can't even make up the 100%. So if she says to him, I only have 20 this evening, he can sometimes say to her, you know what, I'll take the other 80%. Like, how was your day? Do we need to have a chat about it? She's like, no, I just need to go in tomorrow, but I'm spent. There's nothing left of me today. He's like, good, I'll look after you. I'll cover you the other 80%. Then sometimes she comes home, he's like, I only have 20 and she only has 20. And that's when they decide to be really kind to each other. And they decide that they're going to be gentle on each other, try and give a little bit more if they can, and they'll sort it out as soon as they can. They sit down and have a conversation with, okay, how can we get back to our baseline as soon as possible? And that's what I try to do in my relationship. And guess what? It's a much happier place.
Yeah, everything you've spoken about there is about communication and compromise.
Everything.
Right? Okay, so we've discussed red flags. Okay, so somebody comes to your agency, somebody comes to you, and you can tell immediately that they may have a self-confidence or self-esteem issue.
Yes.
Right. Can you help them there, or is that something that factors into who you match them with?
Both. Absolutely both. First of all, we probably have a conversation about what they're comfortable with, where they are at themselves, how they can get more comfortable with themselves, what is holding them back. If it is something to do with a previous relationship, a certain level of trauma, childhood, something that, work related, anything like that, I'll probably send them to Stephanie for a few sessions. I will say Stephanie is great. She's not going to drag it out for 6 months. She's going to get to the source. We both and that's why our podcast is called Tough Love. We decide, the two of us have had conversations. Look, we can go all around the houses with this, but where do you want to go? Most people that we meet are realistic business type of people. They want to get to A from B as quickly as possible. They don't have time to be talking for 6 months. So how can we get there? Again, even having those uncomfortable conversations. A lot of people I meet, I say to them, are you introvert or extrovert? They're like, well, I'm extrovert in work, but I'm introvert personally. That's only because you were forced out of your comfort zone to be extrovert at work. So you have the capability of building some of those skills within dating as well. Also as well, talking about not having a fear of rejection. Like realistically, if you ask somebody out on a date, and I say don't ask them out, just if you're getting on well with someone, say, are you single yourself? Okay, we should grab a coffee sometime. It should be as simple as that, not like, would you like to go and have a coffee with me sometime? Can I have your number? All of the stuff, just like, we should go for a coffee sometime. I enjoyed this conversation. As simple as that. And then saying to them, great, I'll give you a shout on Tuesday or Wednesday and we'll arrange it. But yes, I do tailor the type of person I match them with then as well. So, if they're very introvert, sometimes I will match them with someone that is a little bit more empathetic, I would say, or a little bit kinder. I'm not going to send them on a date with someone that's just going to be like, why are you not talking to me? Straight in their face. So it's a little bit more empathetic, somebody that maybe has good conversational skills themselves, that can kind of carry the conversations. I maybe prepare certain things for them. So if I ask them, what do you like to do for fun? Like that question is always going to be asked on every single date ever. So if they can't even answer that, I'm going to coach them on, okay, let's really think about what you enjoy doing for fun. If they don't have hobbies, I say to people, get more hobbies. We saw Scott Galloway there a couple of weeks ago, Professor Scott Galloway. He's like, get out of your house. If you're single or if you're trying to increase your career, get out of your house. If you're sitting at home playing computer games on your own, if you're watching Netflix on your own, you're never going to meet anyone. You're not getting any further on your life. You're literally sitting still. Nobody's coming, nobody's knocking on the door, those sorts of things. So I help them to increase their skills in those areas. Irish people are really bad at flirting. What's the issue with it? Get good at that. I have a great friend. I was out for drinks with her a few years ago, and I was quite nervous about flirting. It's before my matchmaking days, and I remember watching her in action one day, and I was like, "Holy shit, what the hell is this?" She's like, "Oh my god, I love flirting," and I was like, "I'm attracted to you because of this." Like, she just, the way she talks, the way she moves, everything like that. And so I really just kind of observed her, and I was like, I really want to up my flirting skills. And now I love flirting, and I think everybody should get used to that, even touching their arm, even like being able to look in somebody's eye. their mouth, there's subliminal messages you can give someone. If you're chatting to them, maybe look at their lips as you're talking to them. It does give them a subliminal message that you would like to kiss them. Giving people a compliment is really important. You can kind of trick yourself. I also say to people, if you're really shy and not confident, start with conversations that are easier. So by just jumping straight into standing in a bar, talking to someone you fancy, like that's going to terrify you. And let's face it, probably set you back about 6 months. But how about the next time you go into a shop, chatting away to someone and saying, hey, how are you? The weather's fabulous out, isn't it? It's lovely. And, just starting conversations elsewhere.
Well, the important thing there is to make sure that if you are chatting, you don't have expectations of a result. So you just chat for the sake of chatting, not trying to get from point A to point B. And it makes it 1,000 times easier. You mentioned something there I wanted to ask you about, right? So you're working with clients. Mm-hmm. Not every date is going to be successful. You're going to have to deal with them in terms of rejection and disappointment and build them up. So you're going to probably have to build them up again and build a little bit of self-esteem back and then send them back out on their next date. Would you do kind of a forensic examination of what happened on the previous date, or would you just sweep it aside, or what does that process look like?
It depends. First of all, I do manage expectations at the very beginning. So I often say to people, I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to fall in love. I'm not going to guarantee that you even meet someone that you have chemistry with, because I can't have anything to do with chemistry, but you will see why I matched you with each person. So it starts at the initial consultation, and that does kind of help with the rejection as well. So, if you're 2 dates in or 3 dates in and they decide they want to change a direction, that does help. I call every single person after each of their dates to see how they got on. In the most case, people will say to me, really lovely person, I can see why you matched us. We actually had a great conversation and got some tips for where I'm going to go skiing next year and, branching out. Or they're actually setting me up on a date with their best friend. They reckon that they'd be more suited or whatever. I'm all about people matching, wherever anybody finds love. But sometimes then you do have to have a proper conversation based on what feedback might be. So I had one gentleman a few years ago, he cursed the whole way through his date, and it was pure, it was just absolute nerves.
Yeah.
It was. And it wasn't his personality, because he hadn't cursed at all during the consultation. Another lady that just talked about her ex for the whole date. And of course, she hadn't really mentioned him during the consultation. So when I was talking to her, I just realized that 2 days previously, her ex had texted her. So he was back on her mind. For other people, it could be confidence things. For other people, women, actually, one of the things, they have read so much Cosmopolitan that during their teen years, they were kind of brainwashed into saying, don't tell a guy that you'd really like to get married and have babies, because it scares them away. But when guys are ready to get married and have babies, they want to know that the other person is ready to get married and have babies. So sometimes a guy will ask a lady, do you think you'd like to have family? They're like, I'm not sure. Whereas in their consultation, they could have said, yeah, I absolutely want to. So, then that can often result in a rejection. So if somebody, chemistry in the most part, if it's there, it's there. So it's very rare that one person has it and the other person doesn't have it. For some people, they might say, look, I would have went on a second date, but they get it. They're like, I totally understand if that person doesn't want to waste their time, or I kind of maybe got something. Dating is very selfish. The rejection part is very little to do with the person you went on the date with. It's very often your own feeling. So reasons why people have rejected the other person, things like, he reminds me too much of my dad. He looks like my dad.
That's a good thing.
I know, but it might be or it might not be. Not if your dad was an alcoholic and abusive or something like that, There's so many reasons, but it's very rarely something to do with the other party. It's usually something to do with themselves. I'm looking for something specific. They may be unrealistic in what they're looking for, and we might have another conversation about, I know that one time you went on a date with 10, and I use this in inverted commas, but not everybody you're going to date. If you're holding off for a 10 for the rest of your life, and, she was a pretty good 8.5, I'm just only using that for the purposes of the conversation. All of those things, for some people, there's just everything. There is no, and that's the thing, there is no solid answer. If there was, I would fix it 100 times over. So I normally that's one person in the entire world, just keep going. And very often I say as well, unless it's a hell yes, keep going. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say at the end of each date, I think the only question you should ask yourself is, would I like to meet them one more time? Because Very often people are just like, they're there with their wish list. They're too hard on the person. Some people are not great on dates. They can be very nervous. There can be then, environmental things going on. There could be a Kango hammer going off in the cafe that you went to, or there could be, you might have been late or you might have had a meeting with your boss beforehand and been very stressed going into it. So if there's something there, I definitely think, what's another coffee? What's another drink? Obviously then as well, don't drink too much. If there's whatever the feedback is, I will give it back to them. Now, I will say there's an exception. Sometimes I find that some of my clients, the fault is never them. It's always the other person, the odd time. Okay. In which case, I'm not going to say, if I told them before the date, this guy is tall, dark and handsome, and I've told them exactly this, who he is and what he's going to look like before he could go out on a date. And then they come back to me, they're like, to be honest, I prefer fair hair guys. I'm not going to go back to that guy then basically and be like, oh, well, actually, you need to dye your hair blonde for the next date. I choose the information that I give back if I think it will help their next date. If I just think it's somebody's personal preference, or if I think that somebody's being too harsh or something, I will alter my feedback if necessary. But I will always give a solution.
Yeah. Plus, the tall, dark, handsome thing, those are immutable characteristics, right? They can't be worked on, and they're nothing to do with a person's character, integrity of who they are. I spoke to a bunch of guys, single guys in their late 30s, 40s. And one thing that came up repeatedly, right, before this conversation is that what I was hearing from my guy friends that are single, and there's only about 3 or 4 of them, is that women are very good at telling you what they want. They have a shopping list of things, but they're not so good at telling you what they offer.
Yes.
Right. So perhaps an idea there is, if we focus outwards on what we can offer instead of what we want, or maybe get the balance right, that we can kind of meet in the middle.
Myself and Stephanie often discuss this, that people, and men especially, say that when they're on a date, they feel like there is like a mental checklist going, okay, tall, dark, handsome, successful, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. Okay. And one of the things, and one of the main advice I would say to people when they're really starting out or refreshing their dating adventure is really think about the type of person you would like to meet, and then go through it and look at how much of that is bullshit. Like, honestly, how much
great advice, yeah,
is 100% necessary, and then how much is bullshit. Okay. Then looking at and that sort of person, then who do they date? Like, are they looking for you? So you're looking at self-reflecting back at yourself. Now, for a lot of women, they're confused because they are working in a very male type of industry. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Okay. If you're working for women, you are very often in your masculine energy. You are scheduling, you're working to a timetable, you are looking towards targets, you're keeping business going, you are, whatever it is, frontiering and presenting yourself constantly. Okay. Now, when a man goes on a date, he is not looking to date his equal. He's not looking to date Stephen Accounts. He's not looking to date the guy that, I don't know if it be me or him, that wins the sales target this month.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He
He doesn't care what you do. I've said that at least, because that's probably why my voice has gone, by the way. I've done 18 consultations in the last 2 days in Dublin and Galway. And he doesn't care. I must have said it at least 8 times. He does not care what you do. And the more successful a man is, the less he cares about what you do. Now, it's not that he's not interested and he doesn't care about you. It's more that he wants to know that if you're to get married and have a family, which is what most people want, it's not what everybody wants, and I want to say that as well. But if you were to get married and have a family, are you going to be his wife? Are you going to be the mother of his children? Are you going to be kind? Do you see him? Or do you need to compete with him? Are you going to treat him kindly? Are you going to treat him like the man of the house? And as much as, everybody has masculine and feminine.
Feminists are going crazy here now. Any feminists?
I know they are. I know they are. Okay. But what I'm saying is, right, how long people are on this earth for thousands of years. Okay. And if we really think about it, people are on this earth for thousands of years. It's only in the last 2 generations that people are actually women are actually heading up businesses, frontiering. Now, I will say I come from a long line of, my granny was self-employed. She had her own knitting factory with 50 people working for her. My mum is self-employed and I'm self-employed. So I get it, okay? I also worked in finance for years, and I was the first female to work in the company that I worked in with over 100 men doing that same job. So believe me, I did it, okay? That doesn't work when it comes to dating. So I used to go on dates and I would be like, oh, I was salesperson of the month last month, or I won a sales target, or I won this, or I had whatever number of new clients, and like business. Like that is what business is. No matter what business you're in, that's what business is. But actually dating is different. So some people say to me, oh, I felt on the date like I was on an interview. And it's like, well,
You were.
You were, and that's why you're not going on a second date. So think about it. What is a woman looking for? They are looking for a man that's going to provide. They're not gold diggers. They are looking for a man that's going to provide, because guess what? If you're having babies together, and we're just talking about the traditional, I have same-sex relationships. I'm open to everybody coming to me, okay? We're looking at the male-female relationship right now and having family. Just the traditional, we'll say, or what was all normally, or what is traditional to Ireland, we'll say, to now. Women are looking for a masculine man, and men are looking for a feminine woman. And it is as simple as that. And sometimes women say to me, oh, well, I really want a guy he has to be masculine. It's like, okay, but on your date, are you coming across as a masculine man? Like, honestly, are you just trying to sell yourself? And it's not really their fault, because all day long they're used to present
their masculine
and everything. So what happens, they're extrovert in their job, they're introvert in their personal life. So they now go on their date. And so the first thing they're doing, first of all, they're nervous. They try and present themselves. So they power dress. And second of all, then they are going to go straight back into what they feel comfortable with when they feel nervous, and they're going to default into their masculine energy. So what I say to clients is, tap back into your feminine energy. I did it myself. This is why I found love myself. And the reason I found love myself is because I tried to figure out what was feminine again. So actually what I started doing is, I like my nails to be red, but I started doing natural again, because I thought that was softer, or pink, okay? I feel, and I really kind of took account of when I felt more feminine myself. I used to, at the weekends, I would wear a lot of pink. I don't feel comfortable wearing pink when I'm working for some reason. So what I would do is I would wear a lot of pink at the weekends. I made myself a playlist of love songs. As I was driving home from work in the evenings, instead of being all wound up and thinking, okay, I have to set that person on that date, and I was out on the road all day, so I didn't get those emails done and everything. Instead of that, I'd switch off and I played songs that made me feel like I was in love. I started putting hearts all over my house, which is kind of handy, because being a matchmaker, you kind of like the shape of hearts anyway. And I just kind of tapped back into when I was happiest. Out walking my dog, cooking, baking, those sorts of things. I know it sounds so traditional. I know to feminists, they're like just getting sick right now. But like, if your dating is not working, you need to go back to basics. If you're in your masculine energy all week, I was out playing golf, so I was having fun. And, again, I just was like, how can I get back into this lovely feminine energy? How can I be how I want to be treated? And so I think that's really important. And so that might help some of the ladies out here, but it also might let men understand that when you're on date with a lady, she does want you to lead. She does want you to be the man, but she may not know herself that she's in her masculine energy on that date. So maybe just give her another shot. Just give her a little bit of leeway, because she has had to frontier her own life. She's had to buy her own house. She's had to build her own career, because you don't just get married for the sake of it. She's had to do all of those things until she met you. So give her a little bit of a chance. Why not allow her to be in her feminine energy? Why not, when you say to her, do you want to go on a date? And she's like, oh yeah, there's a lovely restaurant up the road. Why not say to her, let me be the gentleman and you be the lady? And you know what? You'll get a million times further in your dating if you do that.
And it works.
I just really think that people need to focus a lot more on love and dating. I think they leave it till the absolute background of their life. It's the least priority, but actually it's the most important. Men that are married tend to be a lot more successful in their career, but obviously the person you marry, or the person you're with is going to be a lot more, is going to have a huge influence as to your overall happiness in your life. So choose wisely is what I would say. Also with male, same sex relationships as well, I think it's very important that they actually make a move. Men tend to be a lot quicker when it comes to, so if you're doing dating apps, if two men match each other, they're very quick at meeting up and going offline. For male-female relationships, the woman tends to sit still a little bit and let the man lead, even in that situation. And if it's female-female relationships, the chances of them actually, one of them making the first move is very little. So if you are a female looking for a same-sex relationship, just by actually sending the first hello and sending the first message will dramatically increase it.
What effect do you think technology and dating apps in particular is having on relationships and dating?
I think it's good, it's good and bad. I don't think if I say to my clients, whatever way you can meet someone is a great way to meet them. Okay. If you lose your job in the morning, you're going to have to get a job fairly fast and you're going to throw yourself into it. And the pace at which you do your dating and online dating and finding a job and looking for a job is going to be very quick. If you are looking to date, instead of dragging it out for the next 6 months and getting exhausted and being mortally wounded at the end of it and then needing 6 months off until being back in the same place this time next year, why not absolutely go for it for 6 months? Start afresh, close out all of your apps, restart new accounts. So it's a brand new algorithm, put up really great photographs. If you were selling your car on Done Deal tomorrow, you're going to want to get the best price you can possibly get. Okay. So you're not going to put, the corner of the car standing in front of a urinal, basically, put the best photographs you can up of yourself. If you're online dating, actually go for it, properly go for it. Come to a matchmaker. I'll send you out on dates as well. The more dates you're going on, the higher the chance of you finding love. Get really great at flirting. Get really great at your personality. Your personality is going to get you further than anything else in your entire life. Develop your personality. Develop your conversation skills. Get to know a little bit of chit chat without it being boring, have some really great little stories that you can fall back on anyway. Compliment people. If you watch anything that Barack Obama ever did, he's quite a charismatic man, whether you believe in him or not, and if he's your cup of tea or not, he's quite a charismatic man. Reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, all of those things. But I think online dating is fantastic. I think technology is brilliant with it. It can dramatically increase your chances of finding love. I have done online dating down through the years. Guess what? If you go into a bar and you're not going to make any effort, a bar is not going to work. If you go online dating and you're not going to make any effort, it's not going to work. You can get both of them to work. If you're the sort of person that doesn't mind being outside their comfort zone and seizes every opportunity, you're going to have great results online dating. You're going to have great results coming to a matchmaker. But if you drag it out, if you don't know what you're looking for, if you are going to waste people's time, if you're with a girl and you don't want to be with her anymore, I don't care if it's a message. Some people say he broke up with me over a message. And it was like I'd gone on 5 dates with them. Oh my God, at least he told you. Like, send the message. Or even after the first date, always send the message. Don't ever just ghost someone. Be a better person of high value. Send the message saying, I had a great time. Really enjoyed your company. Really enjoyed the evening. I just don't think there's enough romantic chemistry to go on another date. It is as simple as that. Be a person of high value. All of those things. If you're a shitty person and you use online dating, you're still going to be a shitty person. If you're a fabulous person with high values and good personality, you're still going to be that person using online dating. So you can get it to work for you.
Hey, with online dating, the stats that I've come across indicate that women swipe right. So yes, between 5 and 10% of the time. The average is about 5%. Men swipe right 40 to 50% of the time. So what they tend to do is fish and get as many matches as possible and pick the one or two that they want to date, whereas women are incredibly selective. Another problem that seems to be surfacing is that 80% of women are choosing the 20% of what are perceived as the highest value men. So there's an enormous amount of men being left out of the technology dating pool. So perhaps matchmaking and talking to someone like you could work if you're not finding success in the dating and technology space.
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're not finding success in your dating, full stop, you should be talking to a professional. I just don't see why you wouldn't. It's not that unaccessible price-wise. You know, it's financially, it's not going to set you back an absolute fortune. And it's the biggest decision you're going to make in your life. You're going to get there faster. You're also going to get feedback. You're also going to make sure we get you the absolute best match possible.
So what kind of numbers, what kind of success numbers do you have? So you've had 6,000 dates you've created,
7,000.
right? 7,000.
Yeah, 7,000 people. So 7,000 matches 7,000 matches since 2016. Okay. Last year I had 28 couples got married last year. Okay. Now that's not taking into consideration. So I'm one person meeting every single person, first of all. Okay. So that tells you the amount of people that I'm meeting. Like this week, that's why I have my voice is a bit gone. It's a Friday morning when we're doing this. But you know, like there's a lot of couples out there that never want to get married again. So they're also in those figures that moved in together. Like, you know, they're not in those figures, the people that moved in together. The people, like, it's great matching two people that just can't find the right person but are well able to date or don't have the time to be out swiping, or because I get a lot of people that are maybe in the public eye. I get a lot of people that are barristers, solicitors, surgeons, Gardaí, people that don't want to be seen on Tinder, basically. So you have all those, maybe business owners in a small town. Like I'm from Mullingar, there's a lot of business owners from here and all over the country that come to me because they don't want their 50 staff, their brothers and sisters, cousins, everything. People know each other. Ireland's a small country. People that are bereaved or widowed, those sorts of things, they don't want to be seen back online dating 6 months later, but they have to get on with their life. So those sorts of things. So we get a lot of those people as well. Sorry, what did you say to me before that? What did you ask me?
Well, it was about the success, the numbers, what is success like? So like success could be a long-term relations, but doesn't necessarily have to be marriage.
Yes, exactly. So like successfully, I don't have anybody that's ever says to me, I regret coming to you. There's a lot of people that might go off as well, date that person for 2-3 years and then come back to me. I get a lot of referrals from people, even people that may have gone through all of their dates and haven't found their lifelong partner throughout that process, because I'd never guarantee that I'm going to have 100% success rate with anybody, but may have gone through the process but still sends their sister, their best friend, their cousin, their brother, whatever it is, to me. So I have a huge amount of success. It's not measurable. You know, for some of my most success, I would say, is somebody that might come to me, they're 42 years of age and say to me, I've never been on a date, I've never had sex. I get those people as well. Like for me, success there is not even finding them someone. Success there is coaching them to a point where they're actually able to ask someone out on a date and get them to the stage where they're dating someone or confident enough to be able to do that. Also as well, people that they're maybe widowed, getting them back out there. There's a lot of people out there that haven't gone on a date in 16, 20 years. There's a kind of a trend there of people that had huge relationships in their early 20s and were so traumatized after them, never got any therapy after it. So they wait another 10 years before they go on another date. And all of a sudden they're coming to their late 30s. They kind of realize they want to have a family. How do they get back out there? So all of that is success. I don't see success as just being happily ever after. Also, some people come to me and say, you know what, I'm in an absolutely miserable marriage. And I don't know where to go. Are there people out there? But I just know I can't stay here anymore. And I might say, go to Stephanie, talk to her first of all. I might say to them, you know, being realistic, you're coming to me, you've paid to come to me for a consultation or to have even an online consultation with me as to say, if I was to leave this marriage, what are my chances of finding new love out there? That's enough of a reason for you to be looking further at it. And so, you know, success sometimes is having a conversation with someone. Are they the right person for you? But overall, I actually don't know the amount of people that are married. Honestly, hundreds of couples are married. Hundreds of people have babies. Every month I have couples getting engaged, moving in together, just meeting new parents, you know, meeting each other's parents, getting pregnant. I have couples fostering kids together that can't have children, you know, all of those fabulous things.
Okay, fantastic. And last question, where can people find you?
Oh, lovehq.ie. That's it. Simple as that. I'm on Instagram as well at lovehq.ie. As I said before, my podcast with all of the experts is
Great podcast.
Would Like to Meet, and that's the one I won the award for Best Sex and Relationships at the Irish Podcast Awards last year. And then I also have the podcast with Stephanie Regan, who's on was on this as well 2 weeks ago, I think it was. That's called Tough Love as well. So loads of different by me.
Brilliant and full of great advice. Okay, thank you so much, Mairead. It's been fantastic
Thank you so
talking to
much,
you. Lovely
Conor.
to meet
You
you,
too.
and
A real
keep doing what
pleasure.
you do.
Thank you.